Do you ever get the feeling that people are incapable of not caring? People are
I want to open this by saying something odd, but true. The Whale was the most triggering media experience I've had since Doki Doki Literature Club. I understand how insane that sounds, or perhaps looked, if you have no idea what Doki Doki Literature Club is. Both of these works of art put me in situations where I found myself confronting an actual trauma I experienced in my life that I would have preferred to not relive. Now, what I just said is cringe. Super cringe. But it's also true. In the mid-2010s, my sister-in-law died tragically in a violent car accident where she was flung from a moving vehicle. Her body was heavily damaged. So badly, in fact, that the funeral director declined requests to see her. Shortly thereafter, playing Doki Doki Literature Club, I was forced to watch a female anime character decompose over a series of in-game days. It may be the anime brain rot, but at the time I couldn't help but correlate the two. This is what her body looked like, I told myself. The thought stuck with me for days after finishing the game. But to call Doki Doki Literature Club, or The Whale for that matter, traumatizing is a bit of a misnomer. It was the death of a loved one that traumatized me, and the media just reminded me, woke me up from my daydream where I was avoiding my trauma. The Whale had a very similar effect on me. When I was young and in my early teenage years, the entire world, including myself, seemed to be under the impression that my father was going to die soon. I remember once being told by a doctor that he likely had a year or less to live. Now, I was a little kid. That was quite traumatic for me to hear at the time. My father suffered from a rare heart disease that led to several emergency hospitalizations. So a movie about a man dying of congestive heart failure while trying to reconnect with his emotionally stunted and downright depressed child hit a bit too close to home. Yet again, I couldn't help but correlate the two. I cried probably 5 times during this movie. After leaving the theater yet again, it was all I could think about for days. Watching Brendan Frasier, of all people, in a fat suit acting out a heart attack was not something that I thought would trigger me, but his performance was astounding. Speaking of the man of the hour himself, I barely remember Brendan Frasier. To me, he was always just the guy from The Mummy. But now he'll forever be The Whale. The Whale is an adaptation of the stage play by the same name. During the movie's runtime, it's more than a little obvious, too. It's produced by A24 Pictures, who you probably know as the Art Movie Company. They produced The Vitch, Midsummer, Lighthouse, Uncut Gems, etc. The film follows Frasier's character, Charlie, who is a morbidly obese creative writing teacher slowly dying over the course of a week. In-universe, 6 years ago, Charlie left his wife and daughter behind when he fell in love with a male student who has since passed away in a tragic manner. This caused Charlie to fall into a deep depression and led to his current physical state. Charlie is supported by his would-be lover's sister, who acts as his enabler and personal nurse. Over the course of the film, she works as the audience surrogate and medical exposition machine.
Ah, I see you have the machine that goes bing!
Other supporting cast members are Charlie's daughter, a local evangelical missionary, and Charlie's ex-wife. There are very few actors in this movie, but the film does a lot with very little, especially the set. I'm sure it's no surprise, but this movie about a 600-pound man doesn't exactly move around a lot. The entirety of the film takes place in Charlie's apartment. The inside of the apartment is obviously a set, but it's well detailed and believable. The props are impressive as well, but that's because, as mentioned in an interview I watched, many of the props were real-life objects owned by the crew. Speaking of which, the crew likely deserves as much praise as anyone for the quality of this film. The fat suit that Frasier is using in the film is some of the most believable makeup I've ever seen. The lighting and cinematography were great, with wonderful attention to detail down to mood lighting. Not to mention the whole film is in this 4:3 aspect ratio, which I thought was a fantastic decision. No complaints from me on the visuals. I couldn't be more happy. Most of my complaints are squared solely on the writing and the editing. This film is a drama, but it's occasionally over-dramatic. Every character has a sad backstory in a scene where they get to explain it. The only character that doesn't is the pizza delivery guy. It can be a bit much, and it broke my immersion a bit. For a film with a 2-hour runtime, I could see people losing patience. The Whale likes to be dramatic and intense, and I wouldn't blame you if you came out of it thinking it was melodramatic or flamboyant. The editing has some harsh cuts, particularly during big moments where you could tell that they had several takes for a line read, but the audio mixing was well done from what I could tell. I watched the movie in a theater, and the screen next to us must have been showing some action movie. Loud booms that sounded like thunder would play, and I couldn't tell if it was from The Whale or whatever was right next to me behind the giant wall to my left. The Whale uses a lot of evocative sound effects for dramatic effect, and I had a hard time differentiating the sounds in the movie from the sounds of the other theater. With that in mind, I would suggest that if you do watch The Whale, that you do your best to do so in a quiet environment. The Whale is quiet, but in a good way. The kind of quiet that builds good suspense. In my home, The Whale will be purchased day one on Blu-ray when it's released on March 14th. I even have it on my calendar on my phone to remind me. I can't wait to watch it again with my wife, and I'm giving The Whale a 9 out of 10. Great. Go see it if you have the chance. It's a wonderfully novel experience. Comment and subscribe. Special thanks to our producers Anthony Wumbo, James Novak, Biffman, John Foreman, and Zachary Coroner. Happy Groundhog's Day and National Pizza Day.